So yeah, this video is a little bit late as it was supposed to be out like 2 days ago. But me being a lazy ass, it's now being done today. And incidentally, it's now also somewhat outdated because I didn't foresee what they would drop today. But more on that after the intro. Because we have to do the weekly wrap up from last week.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update and welcome to a very late weekly wrap up. Excuse me for this video being late. There was a couple of things that happened this weekend that grabbed my attention and then I didn't have the time and also the motivation to get this video out on at least Sunday. So we have to do it today. I hope it not make you a bit too sad with this. Also, yeah, as I said it in the intro, it's also a bit outdated now because I didn't foresee that we would get the entire set list dropped today. I was expecting it maybe on Wednesday, as that's usually the day that we know all the cards on the week when the next set's gonna be released in Japan. But Bushiroad pulled a fast one on us once again, and they decided to do it on Monday. I don't know if it was leaked preemptively, maybe something went wrong on the website or where these cards come from, but that's the news. You've probably seen other videos from other channels discussing the latest cards. We're going to do that on Wednesday after Tuesday, because Tuesday we're going to get more news, so that day is for something else. And today I want to focus on last week reveals, because there are still very important cards within them, as you've seen in the title or potentially in the thumbnail. So with that said, let's jump straight into these cards, as we've got not 10 but 11 cards, as well as one extra bonus card revealed last week. So let's jump straight into them. So first off, let's take a look at the reveals on Monday. And for Monday, we've got two new Brand Gate reveals. And for Brand Gate, we first have this new double R grade 1, which is Gluttonic monster Malnorm. And its ability is very simple. It's active Ring Circle, once a turn, cost, discard a set order card from your hand, and counter charge 1. Now this is interesting because it allows you to benefit from your set orders besides just the set orders themselves, but in some cases when you already have Abyssal Dark Knight or you already have your Prison active, the other copies of those set orders might not bring you enough value to justify the uses of those set orders. Prison, for example, you're probably going to play 2 of them to have the consistent access for your right line. But the second one is kind of redundant. Yes, you get the free soul, but usually that free soul isn't necessary, so you might not even want to play it. And this is a nice card to then turn those orders into value, as now you can turn them into counter charge. This could be useful for the Orifice build, because the Orifice build wants to play a certain amount of world orders, thus having a consistent access to your Abyssal Dark Knight state. But after that fact, they become less useful and just more mainly cards in hand, unless you have that retire option, and that allows you to then maybe snipe something, but it is very situational. This card can allow you to get more value out of that, and it depends on your playstyle if you want to rely on this or not. I think it's a nice tech option that gives the nation more playstyles and more options, but overall I don't think it's going to change up a lot. But it's a nice tool to have nonetheless. Now for the second card for Brand Gate, we got a very special new grade 2 common Blitz Order, which is Explode Melting Heart. And this Blitz Order is a grade 2 Blitz Order with the ability, play this with cost, Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's attacking units, and it gets power minus 5k until the end of turn for each of your opponent's card imprisoned in your prison. It does not retire even if its power is negative. So this can be extremely powerful. Like for one Soul Blast, it's probably a minus 5k or minus 10k in a lot of situations. But with the latest support for Imprison, it can ramp up the amount of cards in your prison a lot faster than we can potentially look at minus 15, minus 20, minus 25. And then one Soul Blast is 100% worth the value here. But there is another thing about this card. This card is extremely good against re-standing rearguards or potentially Vanguard decks or playstyles. And with Bastion and Bruce being the top dogs, and it looks to be that they're gonna stay the top dogs even in set 2, this can be extremely powerful because the minus power stays until the end of turn. So it can potentially guard against 2 attacks for the price of 1 card and 1 soul, which is huge. So I like this Blitz Order card a lot, and I think it's gonna see play in the prison deck if we see successful acceleration to the imprisoned playstyle. But I'm very confident that it's going to be the case. Now, if we move over to the Tuesday reveals, we got a couple of new support for Stoicheia. And for Stoicheia, we first see a new rare grade 1 in the likes of Beauty pulling the sleeve. And this grade 1 has the ability Auto. When this unit is placed on a rearguard circle, you may put all cards from your bind zone into the drop. If you do, this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of turn for each card put. So this could potentially be a massive beater that can activate off of your resurrection skills and even from Zorger himself. And that's nice because it allows you to up the numbers of your columns even more so and do that in multiple different ways. But I think the power gain is a nice touch, but I think the true value of this card lies in the fact that you can send all your bound order cards back into the drop. We already saw the order card that allows us to get those order cards from the drop back into our hand to fuel our Alchemagic plays, but now this card also allows us to fuel the other side of the Alchemagic plays by getting those bound order cards back into the drop, thus fueling this more and more and more. And with one being an order card and the other being a unit, it is possible to play less order cards in Zorga, but being able to infinitely recycle them turn after turn after turn, because you now have consistent ways of getting them back into your hand and back into the drop zone, which opens up a lot more opportunity for Zorga to be a bit more consistent, or at the very least have more units in their lineup, thus being able to push out more damage consistently without flooding your hand with excessive amount of order cards. So I like this grade 1 a lot, and I think it opens up a lot more deck building opportunities for Zorga, but we have to experiment a bit more to see if this will actually come to fruition in practice. But this isn't the only thing that we got for Stoicheia. We also got a new rare normal order grade 2 order in the likes of Nectar of Sensations, and this is a very powerful order as it's an order with the ability, yes, it doesn't have a cost, choose one of your rearguards until the end of turn. It gets power plus 5k for every 5 cards in your drop, and if your drop has 15 or more cards, it's get critical plus 1. So it can easily be a plus 5, a plus 10, a plus 15 and a crit, plus 20 in a crit, and potentially maybe even plus 25 in a crit on a unit, which sadly does have to be a rearguard, thus not being able to empower your Vanguard all too much. But I think on rearguards it's good enough as it allows us to put even more numbers on the board, and that extra crit pressure does allow us to put more pressure on the board in general, as Stoicheia or at least Zorga is a free attack deck. If we ever see restanding capabilities, this could be terrifying, as the power and the critical is until the end of turn. So that could be very deadly if that ever comes to fruition. But that said, I think it's a solid order card that gives Zorga a lot of pushing power. Yes, you can potentially play this in Magnolia, but I don't think you have the room to play it. But hey, who knows? You can experiment with it and maybe you get successful with it. We have to wait and see. Now, if we move over to Wednesday reveals, we've got a couple of Dark State reveals, and instead of the typical 2 cards, we actually got 3, because besides the 2 cards that were revealed for the card of the day reveals, we later this week also got the last Tripwire of the set, which incidentally is also a Dark States card. So with that said, let's jump straight into a brand new common grade 1 for the nation, which is Surveillance Gear Dober. And this grade 1 has the ability Auto Rearguard Circle. At the end of the battle, this unit boosts. If you are in Final Rush, put this unit into your soul, choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. I like this skill a lot. It's simple, it's elegant, but it works. Like, this card can enable you a lot of extra power plays within your Final Rush builds and your Final Rush multi-tech turns, as it can easily give the unit that's going to restand plus 10k, thus gaining double 10k power. And you need to sacrifice the unit as a booster, but honestly, I don't think that's a hard sell, as you still get the soul, which then can potentially fuel your soul plus 5 cost. So there is actually a lot of opportunity. And I think this could potentially replace the starting percent or acrobat percenter, because the 2 soul can actually become too much at some point, and you much rather want the unit disappear. And this unit giving you 1 soul is probably plenty enough to fuel the soul 5 on a consistent basis, and the plus 10k is a nice addition. And interesting enough, this doesn't specify rearguard, so you can give that to your Vanguard. So in this situation where your opponent hits a defensive trigger, you can actually give it to Bruce to still make your Vanguard hit for a decent number, or at least make the Vanguard still apply pressure without just being by default a 2 to pass because they hit a defensive trigger and your Vanguard is just 13k. So with that said, I think this is a very versatile card, and I think it's gonna see a lot of play for your average Bruce builds. Now for the second card that we've got for Dark Stage, we got Wild Master Darius, a brand new double R grade 2, and this card has the ability Auto Rearguard Circle. When this unit attacks, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3, cost, Counterblast 1, Soul Charge 1, and this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of the battle. If you have 3 or more other rearguards, it gets power plus 10k instead of plus 5. It's kind of whatever, if I'm gonna be very honest. For double R, it doesn't really feel all too special. Yes, it can work in Bruce, yes, it can work in Barra Magnus, but for a Counterblast, just Soul 1 and plus 5 and maybe plus 10, it's basically a Gear Colossus, but then in a grade 2 body that isn't restricted to Final Rush. It is restricted to the amount of field units you have, but I think it depends on your playstyle and your preference if you like this over one of the other. I think it can see play, but I'm not too blown out about this card. It just feels like a generically solid card, but not anything special. Now, if we take a look at the third card for Dark Stage, aka their last triple R, which is also a grade 2, we've got Crimson Expeller. And this card has the ability Auto Rearguard Circle. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, Soul Charge 1. Pretty solid skill, it just generates soul. In Bruce, this could be interesting because you can reset it, thus generating 2 soul. But we probably already have enough soul generating for Bruce, but for Barra Magnus, actually pretty nice. But then also we have Act in Soul, cost, Counterblast 1, and put this card into the drop. Soul Charge 1, choose one of your Vanguards and it gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. So basically, Counterblast 1, exchange this card for another card from your deck in the soul so you don't lose out on soul count, and give your Vanguard plus 10k power. So Counterblast 1, 10k power to the Vanguard, and you lose one card from your deck. I can see the value in this because once again it can work with Bruce because then gives Bruce enough pressure behind him, but I think Bruce have other options to give the Vanguard enough power to put pressure behind the Vanguard attack. But it can also work in Barra Magnus, and with Barra Magnus also having that crit potential, you can easily look at a 33k double crit Vanguard attack outside of your Persona Ride turn, so you have an option to always put a lot of power behind your Vanguard, be it you could Persona Ride or just activate this card. Because I don't think you want to use this card when you Persona Ride, because going from 33 to 43 is less significant in my opinion than going from 23 to 33. So being able to consistently push out 33 double crit Vanguard attacks is actually pretty good. So I can see this as a solid card for Barra Magnus, and because it has on-attack soul charge options, it is really good to ramp up the soul, and because it has a skill that activates when it's in the soul, being forced to put the unit into the soul doesn't really hurt you with this card. So there are actually a lot of flexibilities to this card, so I like this card a lot. It's generic, it is useful in different situations, so I can definitely see this being run, at least in Barra Magnus, maybe in Bruce. Now, if we move over to, I believe these were the actual Wednesday reveals, but I switched them up because I believe Dark Stage was Thursday. The reason why I switched this up is because we have 2 more clans or 2 more nations, but in this case they are particularly clans. If you catch my drift and you've seen the title and the thumbnail, we've got the Cater Sanctuary and Dragon Empire reveals. And both the Card of the Day reveals to the remaining nations were the remaining encounter cards. So let's first take a look at Cater Sanctuary, aka Shadow Paladin. And first off, we've got the common Grade 1 Black Sage Charan. And this card has the ability, auto, when this unit is placed on a Rearguard Circle, if you have a Vanguard with Blaster in its card name, which you obviously always going to have, cost, rest this unit, look at the top card of your deck, and you may call to the Rearguard Circle if it's a unit card. At the end of the turn, retire the called unit. Put it on the top of the deck if you did not call. So this is a temporary +1 for free, which is really nice because you're going to need it because you're going to sacrifice your own units. So being forced to retire that unit at the end of the turn doesn't really matter because that unit is never going to see the end of the turn, if we're going to be very honest. And with this skill, it also makes sense that Charan is just a 7k body because you're going to rest her or him. I'm not gonna go into that one, and you're gonna retire it immediately afterwards. So you're never going to be bothered by the 7k body, unlike maybe in Dragon Empire, there you're actually gonna use those great ones, thus they are 8k. So this is a free +2 for 1 card. That's actually really nice because that fuels your Phantom Blaster Dragon on a more consistent basis, especially with the on the right skill Phantom Blaster Dragon that also generates you 1 card. So by just riding Phantom Blaster Dragon and calling a Charan from hand, you instantly have your free sacrifices for your skill, which is great because you're going to need this support. So Charan is already pretty good, but Charan actually gets better when we take a look at Darkness Maiden Macha. Because here we have the new grade 2 rare for Cater Sanctuary, which of course Darkness Maiden Macha, and her ability is auto. When a unit is placed on the rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Blaster in its card name, this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. So a 15k attacker, which is nice to put up pressure. Then cost Soul Dust 1 and retire another rearguard. Look at the 5 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 1 grade 1 or less unit card from among them, call to the rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. So basically what this is, it allows you to turn 1 unit into potentially a new grade 1 or 0 unit. Now that doesn't really sound like any advantage because you're sacrificing 1 and for another and you use soul and you aren't guaranteeing the unit that you want because you need to check top 5. But let's be honest, in the top 5, you most definitely are going to see a grade 1 or a grade 0, or at least the chances are very high. It does synergize with Blessed Dark because you sacrifice units, so Blessed Dark also gets an extra power. So there's at least that, because as this skill isn't counterblast with Soul Blast, so it cannot be damaged tonight. But that's besides the entire point of this skill. The reason why Macha is really good is because it becomes an engine to get to your Charans on a consistent basis, because Charan is a grade 1. So you're able to change any unit in potentially a Charan, which then is going to rest herself or himself to call another unit, thus gaining access to those retired targets for Phantom Blaster Dragon. But that's just Macha in the current style. Because Macha allows you to tutor or toolbox into grade 1s or less units, she is going to become more powerful with more grade 1 supports in the future, because once we get better grade 1 targets, Macha becomes better and better and better because we get more consistent access to Macha. Because Macha Search is effectively the same as the grade 3 searchers during the V series, which were played or seen play in every single deck because they're so good in increasing the consistency of your deck. Macha is basically that, but then for grade 1s, which is honestly not that bad. And for premium, it's another way to get to your domains, which is really good. So honestly, I like this card a lot, and I can see definitely a lot of future potential, and it solidifies the core foundation for the Phantom Blaster Dragon or the Blaster deck that's now available for Cater Sanctuary. So I like this a lot, and I can definitely see more future support being on the horizon, and just generic support with grade 1. So pretty good. But then on top of that, on the last day of the week, on Friday, we've got the Dragon Empire reveals, which of course were the other 2 encounter cards. And first off, we got the common grade 1 in the likes of Dragon Monk Gojo. And Gojo has a very simple skill, but I like it a lot, which is auto on rearguard circle. When the attack this unit boosted a Vanguard, hits, cost, retire this unit, and counter charge 1. So boost the Vanguard, does the attack hit, retire, counter charge 1. This is amazing for Dragon Empire for 2 different reasons. First off, for Dragoning Overlord, it's gonna hit into the rearguard, and if they don't have a Blitz Order, that rearguard is going to die. Thus, the attack is going to hit. Thus, allowing you to countercharge 1, thus allowing you to have always counterblast access for the restand of Dragonic Overlord or potentially any of your other retire skills that we're going to see in a second with Berserk Dragon. So, Gojo is really nice for that. But Gojo is also really nice for the Overdress deck, because, as we all know, the one attack that is most likely going to hit and no guarded is the Vanguard attack. And if you have a Gojo behind it, that's a free counter charge, and 1 counterblast in Overdress is insane amount of value. And because this card now exists, and you can play it in the Overdress deck, and if you put it behind the Vanguard, your opponent is in a very awkward position. So either they're going to take the Vanguard attack, risk maybe crits, and giving you a counter charge, or they're going to guard it, and maybe they're forced to take the Valiente attack, which that means is going to restand and attack again. So I like this card a lot for its flexibility and for the applications in already one of my favorite decks, which is of course Overdress. So Gojo, welcome to the club. But of course, I already hinted on this card a little bit, because we also have the second card for Dragon Empire, which is the other encounter card, the rare grade 2 Berserk Dragon. And Berserk Dragon has the ability, auto rearguard circle, When this unit attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Overlord in its card name, this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of that battle. Then, cost counter plus 1, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or less rearguards and retire it. So it's a free 15k attacker, which is really good as it allows you to generate better magic numbers. But on top of that, it also is pinpoint removal, and the restriction of grade 2 or less is fine because that's probably most units. Now this together with Gojo explains the whole counter charge for potentially sniping something, so you have more counter charge options. But overall this gives Overlord more powerful rearguards and potentially more spot removal. You're probably gonna use this card to remove the back row, and then with Dragonic Overlord you're gonna hit into the rearguards themselves. Or it's gonna hit into a interceptor and you can then attack with Overlord into a front row grade 3 units or something like that. So there are more options here. It's just what we came to expect of Berserk Dragon, so I don't think there's a lot to discuss about this particular card that you wouldn't already expect of this card. And with that also concludes all the reveals that we got last week. Not this week, because we're a bit late here, but that said, I'm very curious of what you guys think of these new reveals. Surprisingly, we got the encounter cards a bit earlier than I expected, because I was expecting them this week. But we got them last week, and overall I'm very happy about the skills they got. They fleshed out their builds a bit better. Maybe not so much for Dragonic Overlord, but Dragonic Overlord just on the right line itself felt a bit more secure than Phantom Blaster Dragon. And the support they got was just generic solid support. It also can be used in other decks. Maybe not Berserk Dragon, but Gojo definitely. So I'm very happy with that. And of course Dragonic Overlord feels also more like a Dragon Empire deck, boss unit, so it's probably more likely that generic support will support it, whereas Phantom Blaster Dragon is about the self-sacrifice mechanic, and Gator Sanctuary doesn't really support that, and I don't see them supporting that with the future playstyle, so all the support that Phantom Blaster Dragons can get right now is what he's going to need. So I like the fact that they flesh out Macha and Charan a bit better for their respective playstyle, and a small spoiler alert, this isn't all. We're gonna see a bit more support for these two right lines, which is a bit unexpected, but I'm very happy with that, because that means the deck will probably survive a bit longer. But more on that on Wednesday, when we're going to take a look at all the new cards revealed for Brush with the Legends, or Brush with the Legends, aka set 2 for Overdress. But with that said, let me know in the comments down below what you think of these new cards. What's your favorite from last week? Are there some cards for your respective nation that you're very excited, or for your respective archetype? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a patron today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Timeleap, and I'll see you guys in the next one!